Good afternoon. Let me start with an update on where we are in the count. As you know, yesterday we began the day trailing by 50 votes. The day before that, we started the day trailing by 73 votes. There has been a lot of speculation about where we'd be today, particularly in light of the 171 uncounted ballots that were found in Ramsey County yesterday. A development that I might point out that the Coleman campaign first told KSTP they weren't troubled by. They later told WCCO that they were skeptical. And this morning, their skepticism seems to have turned into downright panic and opposition. I guess they have changed their minds. Anyway, there's a lot of speculation about where we are in the count. As of the end of counting last night, Al Franken leads Norm Coleman by 22 votes, with approximately 138,000 ballots left to be hand counted. 94.3% of the state has now been counted. Obviously, that number is going to change as the remaining 138,000 votes are counted, but we are pleased thus far with how things are proceeding in the hand count, and we have gained 237 votes in the recount thus far. Now, many of you have heard reporting of a margin that is over 300 votes, and as I have said before, that figure is derived from raw data on the Secretary of State's website. That data is not incorrect, though it is somewhat misleading. Our figure differs in several respects. First, we take into account counting that occurred after the Secretary of State's website goes to bed, so to speak, which, as you know, they post at 8 p.m. We update our number until the last results come in from the last counting table. So you will see our 94.3% number is somewhat larger than the percentage counted on the Secretary of State's website. But underlying the premise of the 300 vote margin figure is a flaw in the underlying assumptions that it makes. Let me illustrate it this way. Let's take this ballot. Okay? This is a ballot that was cast in Ramsey County and was challenged by the Franken campaign. Now, as you all can see, this is a vote for Norm Coleman. Okay? And I think it's pretty clear that the state canvassing board would determine that this is a vote for Norm Coleman. In fact, I've done a number of recounts over the years, and I can say that it is pretty clear to me that it's a vote for Norm Coleman and that it will be counted as a vote for Norm Coleman by the state canvassing board. However, under the math that leads you to a 300 vote margin, since this was challenged by one of our challengers, it looks like Norm Coleman lost the vote. This comes out of the counting. Okay? It's over here, doesn't go in the counted pile, and thus the margin of the election is affected by that one vote, because the total number of votes that are counted for Coleman excludes this. Now, we know that the Coleman campaign has challenged more Franken ballots than Franken has challenged Coleman ballots. That margin stands, again, as of last night, at approximately 300. It's the difference between the challenges on the two sides. Most of these challenges, a clear majority, the vast majority of those challenges on both sides, will be like this one and will be overruled by the state canvassing board. Thus, when we set out internally to decide how we track the results thus far, we assume that all of the challenges on both sides will be overruled at the canvassing board, and that the judgment of the neutral, nonpartisan election official at the counting table will be upheld. Now, we know that that's not entirely true because we know that some of the challenges will be upheld. But you have a choice. You can either start with the proposition that all of them will be upheld, or you can start with the proposition that none of them will be upheld. And I think it is safe to say, in reading a number of your all's publications and watching the TV and listening to the radio, it's clear that you all have some skepticism about how many of these challenges are going to be upheld. So our methodology assumes that the vast, overwhelming majority will not be upheld. I bring this up because, as I've said before and as we've said consistently, we are reviewing our own challenges internally. to ensure that any non-meritorious challenge, such as this one, is withdrawn. And today I'm happy to announce the first fruits of that effort. We will be sending a letter to the Secretary of State today. We're withdrawing approximately 600 challenges that we believe stand no real chance of being upheld as challenges before the State Canvassing Board. This has been a painstaking effort, going one by one through these and reviewing them and understanding what the basis of the challenge is. And, you know, some of these ballots were challenged for voter intent, and some were challenged for chain of custody, and some were challenged for other reasons. So it's been a painstaking process, and I appreciate your all's patience as we have gone through this. But we will be withdrawing, as I said, something in the neighborhood of 600 ballots today by letter to the Secretary of State. Now, what does that mean for the count? It really means nothing. It means that we are still up 22 votes, and then whatever happens today in the remaining count. However, if you calculate the number tomorrow using the same methodology as the 300 number, it will look like we are down 900 votes. Why? Because we will have withdrawn 600 ballots that stand no chance of being upheld as challenges at the table. So in reality, the fact that we are withdrawing these challenges does not have in any way any effect one way or the other on who's going to win the election or the recount. The only practical impact of what we're doing today is to save the State Canvassing Board the trouble of looking through these challenge ballots and saving the taxpayers of Minnesota the cost of copying and scanning these challenge ballots. And we, like I said, will continue to do this on a rolling basis, and where there are more challenges to be withdrawn, we will do so. So let me just recap. We are ahead as of close of business last night, as of close of counting last night, I should say. We are ahead by 22 votes. The assumption that we are down 300 votes is based on an assumption that all the challenges are meritorious, which I've explained why I think that's not a correct baseline. And frankly, that number will grow dramatically by the fact that we have withdrawn these challenges today, because we have done so on a unilateral basis. We continue to believe that we will gain votes during the State Canvassing Board's examination of the remaining challenges. We do conduct an internal review of that and remain confident that we will net additional votes during the challenge review process, and feel good generally about where we stand in the recount. Before I take your questions, I wanted to update you just on one other small item that has come up or has been a source of questions over the last few days, and that is our efforts to obtain data related to the rejected absentee ballots. Yesterday, I said there were 4 counties from which we had not yet received data. 3 of them have told us that they're giving us that data today, which means that we will have received data from every county in Minnesota except one, and that is Carlton County. We continue to work with Carlton County to hopefully change their mind and have them follow the lead of the other 86 counties in providing that data to us, and obviously to you all and whoever else seeks it. With that, I will take any questions.
How many ballots exactly are you going to?
I don't.
If you're sending a letter, do you have?
I'm sorry. How many today? What's?
Do we have that letter?
Okay, we now actually have the letter, so it'll have the exact number. 633.
And why are you doing this unilaterally? As you know, Knock has said several times he wants to meet with you. And
let me answer it the same way I've answered it before. I can't be any more straightforward about this. If there are challenges that are not meritorious, then it does me no good to have them included. All it does is waste everyone's time and energy, and it obscures what's going on in the count. So we made a decision that we were going to have an orderly review of the ballots and withdraw them where appropriate. Let me be clear about this meeting. The only request for a meeting that I've received was the press release that was sent out to you all and then delivered to me as a letter the next day. You know, my phone number is not hard to find. You know, it's available. It's available on the internet. I'm here today. They can presumably call through the switchboard and find me. So it is not like there have been these grand efforts to reach out to me that have been rebuffed. The fact is they held a morning press conference a few weeks ago and issued a press release about it. If it will help them, do the right thing, then I suppose meeting is fine, and I'm happy to do it. But there is nothing that prevents either side from simply looking at the ballots that they have challenged and withdrawing them if there's not a basis for it.
And why just 633 when you've said several times you assume that many of these are non-mail?
Again, it's a logistics matter, you know, and I'll be candid. I'll be perfectly candid with you. When I told you all, I think about 10 days ago, that I was going to start looking at it over the weekend, it's a lot more cumbersome to go through these one at a time and understand what the basis of the challenge is and where it came from and do all the verification. So it's taken us a little bit longer to get rolling. We are now rolling, and we will continue to move forward. So the answer to your question is, that is as far as we have gotten in this process. But we will continue to move forward. And as I said, I have no opposition to meeting with the Coleman campaign's lawyers. If that's going to help move this process forward of withdrawing ballots, that's great. But I don't want anyone in this room to believe that there is anything that prevents the campaigns from withdrawing a ballot. As I recall, when I did a press conference with you all a couple of weeks ago, I held up 10 examples or so of ballots that were perfect textbook examples of how a ballot should be filled out. And my understanding is, though I obviously wasn't there, one way or another, someone presented a copy of that to Mr. Sheehan, the campaign manager for the Coleman campaign, and they said that that was a vote for Franken. Well, if that's the case, then withdraw the challenge, right? At least withdraw that one. I mean, if you admit that you have challenged the ballot incorrectly, just withdraw it. There's no shame in that. I mean, this is a big process. It's a complicated process. It's going on all throughout the state of Minnesota. Both sides have people out in the field who are working hard every day along with these election officials to try to make sure that their candidates' rights are preserved. But if ballots come in and you look at them and there's no basis to challenge, I mean, frankly, this ballot's got more of a basis for a challenge than the ones I showed you that day. But we've withdrawn it because ultimately it's not going to be upheld as a challenge ballot before the canvassing board. So I'm happy to meet with the Coleman campaign if that will help them take the next step. But you know, we're prepared to move forward anyway.
How many of your challenges have you gone through? I mean, it's 633 out of how many?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
And are easy ones, and so now you go to the more difficult ones?
It's not. Look, a lot of this is complicated by the fact of timing and geography. As we speak, there are challenges being issued, so it's not quite. This would be a much easier process if there was a recount. We got all the ballots, we got all the information, and then we were able to sort of take a deep breath, look at it, analyze it, and then we could, in either one fell swoop or easy to hard, do it in that fashion. But the fact is, as we speak, there are still counting going on today. So it's not quite like we said, okay, let's do all the easy ones first, because it's bounded by the fact that there are ballots still coming in. We get these ballots physically in paper sent from the various counties. So a lot of it has to do with timing, frankly, as much as anything else.
Assuming the Coleman campaign more or less ends up following suit with this, do you have a gut feeling for about how many real challenges the canvassing board is going to have to?
I don't yet. I don't, and it's a number I'd like to be able to give you all. And you know, as I've tried to do throughout all this, I try to only give you data that we have a high degree of confidence in. And since I don't have a really good sense of that yet, I'm not gonna guess.
We're all working with the same numbers, and the difference in your computation is your assumptions for the challenge ballots. Could you tell me again what those assumptions are?
Yeah, the assumptions that we use are that none of the challenges will be upheld. We assume that every Franken ballot that has been challenged by Coleman and every Coleman ballot challenged by Franken, okay, all the challenges on both sides, will be rejected. And that's not because we think that that's how it ultimately will come out. Ultimately, we think there will be some challenges upheld on both sides, and we think more of our challenges will be upheld. So we think we'll actually gain votes in that challenge review process. But I understand that that's me as Al Franken's lawyer standing before you, so you're going to greet that with a certain measure of healthy skepticism, right? So what I say is, let's just assume that none of the challenges are upheld. None of ours and none of theirs, okay? Where does the count stand? And if you look at it that way, we are up 22 votes. The only other alternative is to do what a number of your news publications have done, which is to assume that every challenge will be upheld. Every one. Even though you all write day in, day out how silly some of these challenges are, your numbers are assuming that that this ballot is currently not in the count, even though I'm standing here telling you it should be.
Wasn't there a third option that you discussed earlier, which was the ruling at the table?
I'm sorry, that's what we're following.
That is what you're following.
Correct. We assume that, in other words, what happens at the table is a nonpartisan election official looked at this ballot and said, this is a vote for Coleman, okay? Someone on behalf of the Franken campaign said, we challenge that. As a result, you have a choice in how you count. You could either say, we're going to assume that the call at the table was correct. And if you do that uniformly, not better for us or better for them, uniformly, we are now up by 22 votes. Or you can assume that, okay, we're going to say that that challenge is in fact correct. And every challenge is correct. And we're going to set them aside in this challenge pile, which is basically the methodology that has been used to date by a number of news publications. The result is that it has incentivized the Coleman campaign to over-challenge and not withdraw. And, you know, that's fine. That's their choice. It's not going to affect the outcome of the election. It's not going to affect the outcome of the recount. Ultimately, those challenges, that challenge that Mr. Sheehan was shown an example of where he acknowledged that it was a vote for Franken still remains out of the count. And that's fine because it will eventually be a vote for Franken at the end of the day. I offer these numbers each day because I think it's another way of looking at where the state of the race is, and to the extent you find it useful, we want to share it with you.
Two questions. You had said that you're assuming that none of the challenges will be upheld. Aren't there some where the election judge said, yeah, that's a challenge, the voter's intent is unclear, or that's an invalid ballot that...
Well, then that's the call at the table.
So...
That, in other words, then...
That does include some challenges would stand.
But then the call at the table was on that side. In other words, what we're saying is we're going with the call at the table in every instance.
Okay.
Even if the call was that the challenge was valid.
Right, although if the challenge is valid, then it ceases to be treated as a challenge. It then becomes the call at the table, and then presumably the other side challenges it for the other reason. It goes into the challenge pile. But it's a little bit like you know, in the NFL, you know, with instant replay, right? You have the call on the field, and then you have the later review. Our analysis is to assume the call on the field is always correct. Now we all know that sometimes instant replay overturns it, and we're going to have some ballots that are where the canvassing board is going to do its job, and it's going to come out with a different result than the election officials did at the table. But we think
the NFL looks at it too.
Right, but as a baseline, you could either say the NFL could either say we're going to assume that every call on the field is correct, or we're going to assume that every field on the call, whenever a coach challenges it, is incorrect. I think you have to start. It's more sensible to start with the proposition that they're probably correct in the first instance.
And do you have any estimate of how long it took you to get those 633? And is there anything we can read into that for how long it would take the canvassing board?
I don't think there is. It took us a long time because we had to collect the data and we had to set up a process for reviewing it. I think we're going to move more quickly, and I'm sure the canvassing board is going to have a better process coming in than you know. We started from scratch.
Does the re-election of Saxby Chambliss change your strategy in any way?
No.
I asked this because Ron Carey suggested today that perhaps Franken should just recognize whatever the recount is and not exhaust anything in the courts, simply because the Senate numbers are what they are now.
I'll be honest with you. This is not aimed at you, but it's nonsensical. I mean, there was a Senate election in Georgia, and the results were what they were, and we're trying to figure out who won the election in Minnesota. I mean, the two don't obviously. I mean, from my standpoint, there's no obvious connection between the two.
What he's also saying, though, is that this means that you won't pursue this in the Senate anymore because the 60th person isn't as important.
This is something that I said, or that he said?
This must be their back channel into the campaign again.
No. This is in their statement. They're saying that because the Saxby Chambliss won, you all now won't pursue a Senate strategy if it comes to it.
They should probably stick to figuring out what they're going to do rather than telling me what I'm going to do.
Anyone on the phone? Could I just quickly, the Maplewood situation, I know it turned out as a plus for Franken. In your campaign, looking at it, were you satisfied with the way it was handled?
We were, and what I said that, you know, you could tell on the call I was genuinely taken by surprise, both I didn't know about it, and I think I even asked, where someone was describing to me the demographics of the precinct, and what I said, sight unseen, was good. If they find missing ballots, the missing ballots ought to be counted. I mean, I've been standing up here for day after day saying that the Secretary of State's office ought to instruct the counties to make sure that that all missing ballots are found and that the counties ought to look. And I yesterday came in and thanked the Secretary of State for issuing such guidance to the counties, and I'm glad that it seems to have had a positive effect in that missing ballots were found. So I think we can all we should all be happy when every vote is counted. I am never cease to be amazed that the Coleman campaign seems to express disappointment over and over every time lawful votes are counted.
And I would just add to that at 5 o'clock on Tom's broadcast on KSTP, they did seem pretty happy that ballots had been found. They said, well, let's count them up. Nothing troubling here. But by 6 o'clock on WCCO, they had decided they were skeptical, and by this morning, that skepticism turned into more profound concern. So I'm not sure why they went from being happy about uncounted ballots being counted to being upset about it, but there's something that went on there. Take a question on the phone.
Yes, this is Pound. I'm wondering, Mark, how many ballots are in the challenge pile? It was something like 6,000. It's now, what, 5,400 since you're withdrawing these?
I'll be honest with you. I did not. It's a number I usually pull, and I apologize. I didn't pull it this morning. We can certainly get you what the total number of challenges were.
Okay.
6,003.
I'm sorry. I'm told it was 6,003 total. So
6,003.
that's what the press is telling me here.
Yeah, and then you're saying that you're withdrawing 600, so that leaves about 5,400 to be considered?
Yeah, we're actually withdrawing, I think, slightly over 600. 633, I'm told.
Okay.
We'll get you the exact letter, and it will have the exact number along with which ballots they are.
Okay. The other thing is, how long will it take? In other words, I think they're also going to consider some of these absentee ballots. Am I correct?
Well, that is our certainly our hope. There was a meeting of the Canvass Board a week ago today, and they deferred the question of whether to count the so-called fifth pile until a future meeting. Since then, the Secretary of State has issued instructions to the counties to start the sorting process, but we await to see what the Canvassing Board says with respect to those absentees.
And the other thing I was wondering about, how long do you think it's going to take the Canvassing Board to certify this election? They won't do it, obviously, on the 16th. Will it be several days later, you think?
I would really defer those questions to the Canvassing Board and the Secretary of State's office.
I'm trying to get an idea how long you think this will take.
Yeah, I would.
What's your instinct as to how long it will take?
I honestly don't have one because I don't know how many ballots will ultimately remain to be considered, and we have not been apprised of the exact process that they're going to use at the Canvassing Board. So.
But they wouldn't certify on the 16th, am I correct?
I would be shocked if all the
surprised.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it was the 16th.
Yeah, and do you think no matter what happens here that this is going to end up in the state courts in Minnesota?
We have said all along that we are taking this.
No, not you.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to?
Hold on
No,
a second.
Sorry.
We have said all along that we're taking this one step at a time. And are not going to speculate sort of where this goes. We have confidence in this process, and we're gonna play it out step by step.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody loses, whoever loses by 200 votes or whatever the final count may be, given the nature of this thing, isn't it kind of obvious that there's going to be a state challenge, a court challenge on this?
Again, we're going to take it we're going to take the process one day at a time, step by step. We have not ruled anything in, we've not ruled anything out, and I'm sure that that's probably the posture that the Coleman campaign had. Their letters of the last couple of days look awfully like they are preparing themselves for an election contest. But
Ed, if you've got more follow-ups, we can try to get you on the phone with Mark this afternoon. Anybody else on the phone or in the room have any?
Yes, this is John McCormick. I had a question. Does your campaign have all 6,000 of those ballots photocopied? Is that how you're going through each of these ballots, is by photocopies of each of them?
that is exactly correct, though we don't have all 6,000 copies yet. We receive them. They get processed at the county, they get copied at the county, and then they get sent here. So that's why I was saying that the review process is something of function of the logistics and timing of getting the ballots.
And would your campaign allow the press to look at those ballots and see which ones are in fact valid, to go through that and take a look?
I think the Secretary of State has already made those ballots available to the press.
Okay.
In fact, a number of your all's websites have these play the canvas board game. It's actually quite addicting. Many of you know that because it became the subject of a press release by the Republican Party of Minnesota, strangely enough, that I decided to visit my family, which is not normally, by the way, press-worthy. Perhaps a commentary on the sorry state of things in my personal life. But I decided to go home and spend some time with my wife and kids, and my 9-year-old son, who is just old enough to sort of know what's going on here. Was sitting at the, I want to say it was the Star Tribune, but I don't want to give false credit the wrong place, was sitting there playing this, was counting votes between the two candidates. So I didn't ask him sort of how it all came out.
Anything else?
Yeah, this is Mark O'Brien, newspaper.
I'm sorry, from where?
the Hill.
Okay.
I have two quick questions. This is the first day you guys have really not hammered home points about the allegedly improperly disqualified ballots. Does that lose the urgency now that you guys claim a lead?
No, it doesn't. I mean, no. The answer is it doesn't. It is not the first day we've not raised it. We try to bring things up that are newsworthy. So I'm happy if it's helpful. I can walk through again our belief that every lawful vote ought to be counted. That there ought to be broad agreement that if a Minnesotan cast a lawful ballot, whether that be in person or by absentee, that ballot be counted. We look forward to the canvassing board's next meeting to determine what to do with the fifth pile. So no, it was not. There was nothing other than trying to focus those things which we thought were going to be more newsworthy.
Right, and the other question is, the NRSC just set on blast while you guys were talking. There's been media chatter arguing that this is somehow less relevant. How do you guys respond to that?
What's less relevant?
That the outcome of the Minnesota Senate race is less relevant.
I guess, can someone just explain to me what I'm not trying to be dense, and I feel like if there are all these press releases, I'm missing what about it. Why is it less relevant to the folks in Minnesota whether or not they have the correct person the person duly elected in the United States Senate? I mean, is Minnesota supposed to wake up today and say, you know what, we don't really care who our senator is anymore because the Georgia runoff is over? I mean, I'm missing a piece of this chain of logic, and it may just be me.